Alright, what's poppin', people? We're back. And out today. We're coming to the end of week 9 of SCL. That's gonna happen, I guess. I guess that's gonna happen tomorrow. So after tomorrow, we'll be in the playoffs of SCL. I believe it's 2 rounds, so it should only be taking about 2 weeks. Once that happens, assuming no tiebreaker stuff, this music's too loud. Shout out to Glitch X City, though. Good music. That's too loud. There we go. Let's go. Just gotta make sure that I'm coming over in the volume mixer. But because of that, I wanted to kind of put together my take on the meta after having seen what's getting used in the tournament, and just obviously my own experiences on the ladder, what I've been using, what I've been seeing used to success, etc., etc. Now, obviously, this is my opinion only, so don't take this as me speaking for the other VR people. Also, keep in mind, this is not an update. This is just my take on the metagame. View it as the NU tier list, courtesy of your boy. And yeah, obviously, I'm gonna say this once, and we're gonna come back to it. If you're enjoying the content, just hit the sub button. That's all I gotta say on that. I'll appreciate you if you do. If you don't, well, I still appreciate you because you were here this long into the video. But I'll also try to give my opinions on some of the changes I made, and maybe just like certain things. Like, so I'll talk about like Talonflame and maybe even the S- stuff too. This isn't going to be me going over every entry, otherwise this would be taking like an hour 30. I guess I could go over, we'll see. I'll go over as much as I want. Inevitably, as we get to a certain point, I will start speedrunning it anyway, so it's not too big a deal. Anyhow, so Talonflame and the sole S rank. We have other Pokemon S-, but Talonflame's the sole Pokemon in S. And why is that in my eyes? Well, when we look at SCL for starters, I actually wrote a large post on Talonflame because someone said that they think it should drop. So a lot of what I say here is going to be in reference to that. But if we look at SCL, just for starters, Talonflame has over 50% usage rate, which means the way the usage rate's done in SCL is it is based on the amount of teams the Talonflame was on, not the amount of battles you saw one in. So 50% of teams used in SCL have a Talonflame, which means pretty much every battle there was a Talonflame more than likely. And of those, of its usage, 51% of the time it got used, it won over 60% of the time. This is just to speak to its effectiveness. That is insane. And the reason for that is how, win rates work in correlation with, I guess in conjunction with usage rate. As usage rate goes up, win rate is going to naturally progress, or what's the word? I took multiple years of calculus, I should remember. Converge on 50%. And the reason is pretty easy. As you get closer to 100% usage, well, Talonflame is probably winning and losing at the same time. Let's just take the the maximum example. If Talonflame had 100% usage, its win rate has to be 50%, because it means it was used on every team, which means there were two Talonflames in every battle. One of them has to lose. So for Talonflame to command this insane usage rate, over 50%, and still be getting 60% of the wins, it's actually just really impressive. Yes, it's not a usage rate comparable to, like, say, I don't know, Primal Groudon in Gen 7 Ubers, but it's still an insane amount. And to see this mod pretty much is showing, hey, if you're not using me, what are you doing? I'm winning all the time. Yeah, that just speaks to its effectiveness from a statistical standpoint. But if we want to also talk about it, like, in-game, right? Best pivot in the tier, probably? Pretty good set diversity, even just within, like, its most common set of utility. We've seen Bulk Up, Wisp, Brave Bird get used. We've seen U-turn Sword Stance. We've seen, Brave Bird Wisp versus Blitz Toxic, depending on what you need your Talonflame to hit. We've seen offensive sets pop up a lot more, utilizing Gale Wings. Boots helping to keep that alive. Even just seeing, again, like, full-on offensive with, like, Acrobatics, if you want to look at, take, for example, the Spikes offense team that I did that. I don't want to call it live, but I did that video with a couple maybe like a week or so ago. There's a lot that Talonflame could do, and I think that's kind of helped solidify its spot at S, along with just it succeeding at an insane rate. It being able to fulfill all these different roles now is just giving it a lot more justification to be put on teams. And so in my eyes, a Mon that commands an insane usage rate, a Mon that is so successful, a Mon that can do so much for a team. Like, I'll be honest, you know, I'll be team building maybe on PS, talking with a friend, and I'll be talking with him, and I'll be like, bro, I swear every team of mine has a Talonflame. Like, a couple weeks ago, I actually went back, and I organized a good amount of my most recent teams, like, so I could look at them all at the same time, like, vertically. I put, like, you know, maybe at the front, Wall Breaker, and then Fight Resist, and then Steel type. You know, just, like, general roles I could sort of classify the teams by. And I'm a balanced player by heart. That's just the team archetype I've always used the most. And so a lot of my teams do follow some sort of formula with divergences here and there. But there was a point, there was just a Talonflame column. It's just so easy to put on teams. You know, it keeps a lot of stuff in check just because of its speed and even its typing. You know, shoutouts checking Surfetched. And it just does so much so well that I really think it should be reflected by being the only S rank. Now that obviously means that I did have Bronzong dropped as minus, and that's not to say Zong has necessarily gotten much worse. I think it's gotten a little bit worse. Teams have really adapted to its presence. In part, you see the insane Xatu usage nowadays. But in general also, like if we go at and look at other Pokemon that do give Bronzong at least a little bit of a difficult time, you can talk about like Starmie, Golurk, Toxicroak. Do we count that? No, not really. Deblade obviously is in the tier now. Palisand, Subseed, CM Comfy. But there are a lot more Pokemon getting usage that can at least slow down Bronzong's Iron Defense attempts. And then Xatu, we can add on to that point, but talk about the Stealth Rock set. Xatu pretty perpetually is going to deny Zong rocks. And it's kind of gotten to the point where I think if you run Stealth Rock Bronzong, you should probably be running Shadow Ball on it. I don't think you want to give Xatu free entry, not with how, like, much of a defining force, frankly, Xatu has gotten to be over the past couple of weeks. More like the past month, really, at this point. And we're even seeing Iron Press Zong sets go with Shadow Ball now some. You know, we used to see, like, Iron Defense Body Press, Filler Rest. And that filler a lot did now Shadow Ball because it gives you a lot of coverage against a lot of the Pokemon that would, you know, check your body press. I mean, look, at the end of the day, a lot of those mods are going to be your fight resists or fight immunes, and most Pokemon that resist or immune to fighting don't take Shadow Ball too well. And so it just gives Bronzong a good amount of leeway over other foes. And that's, of course, neglecting to mention all of the stuff Bronzong does really well defensively. If you're Levitate, then you're a great answer to Sylvally Ground, which, of course, that's still getting a high amount of usage. And if you go Heat Proof, you're just really good into a lot of Pokemon that commonly carry coverage for Steel types. So, like, Goodra, for instance. Exploud, you're one of, like, the few pretty resilient Exploud checks, and by resilient, I mean you switch in, like, twice. But, Goodra, Exploud, I guess Salazzle you can kind of count in there, because even a +2 Overheat can't muscle through you. What other mons would we want to talk about here? Not really too many others. I guess we can talk about Tyrantrum as well. You're a good rock resist, which is pretty valuable. I feel like there is definitely a case to still be made that you could put Bronzong in the same category as Talonflame, just through like sheer splashability. I would listen to that, and if Bronzong ends up still staying S rank with T-Flame, I will not complain. I think Bronzong's still incredible. I just feel like Talonflame defines the metagame a little bit more. And part of that also comes down to Bronzong's competition. You know, there are other really good steel types. You know, Copperajah, not what it used to be, but still really good. Especially as you've seen more people opt for, like, you know, rock moves on it, like, regardless of its set. Used to be you only really saw AV run Rock Slider Stone Edge. Now you see Stealth Rock do that all the time as well. Escavalier, I'm particularly high on as a Pokemon. You've got even, like, more niche options, like, I guess Deblade's not niche, but, like, Deblade is another one, Ferroseed, Sylvally Steel, I guess. Like, there are other things you could do with your Steel-type slot, And I think that makes it really easy to end up with teams that don't have a Bronzong. And next up, actually new entry to S- in my eyes, Diancie. I think Diancie's really good. It's just generally great at rocking versus Xatu, because you go Moonblast Power Gym, and you are just able to really consistently keep damage on it. I don't think Power Gym Oko's, but you like 70, and then Moonblast is constantly doing about the same amount of damage as Roost. So Xatu's never able to really get comfortable versus Diancie that way. Of course, the Diamond Storm Body Press set is also sturdily good. Body Press is just like nice at getting damage onto something like a Bronzong or a Copperajah, which maybe otherwise could stop those Moonblast Power Gym sets. And we've seen a lot more just experimentation with Diancie's last slot as well. Like, you're always going to, I'm not going to say always, because I think you could go non-Stealth Rock Diancie, but you're going to see Stealth Rock and then 2 attacks. And those 2 attacks will usually be either Moonblast Power Gym or Diamond Storm Body Press. You can see Heal Bell in the last slot. That's usually what you will see, because Diancie's a Cleric, and it frees up maybe if you go Diancie Vaporeon, then Vaporeon could run a different move, like Toxic or Roar or Haze, for instance. I don't think you should ever go another move than Heal Bell on Vapo, but hey, some people do. Encore I think is really cool. Just helpful to shut down a lot of those slow setup sweepers like Snorlax and Bronzong, for instance. Obviously, if you go Diamond Storm Body Press, you'll see Moonblast last a lot. And if you go Moonblast Power Gym, you can see Mystical Fire last a lot. Help prevent, again, Copperajah, but also things like the Scavalier or Levitate Bronzong from switching into you all too well. And defensively, of course, Diancie checks things like, you know, Exploud, Talonflame, and Guzzlord, especially if you go max, or if you run enough to outspeed max speed, Guzz. You're not a horrible Dragalge check, you're not a horrible Salazzle check, thanks to the Rock type. And as a Stealth Rocker, I mean, as we said, we already have a positive matchup against Xatu. A lot of the other defoggers aren't really too good into you either. Like, Rotom Mode does not OHKO you with Leaf Storm, so you can always stay in versus it. If we're talking about other, there really aren't that many common hazard movers. Wow. As I look at this, I'm just thinking about all the mons I would never run hazard removal on, despite them learning the moves. Well, I guess we could really just stop it there for Diancie. It matches well into the common hazard prevention mods of Rotom C and Xatu. Yeah! And, look, some people are gonna say, why do you have Rotom C and S-? It is getting stomped on in SCL. And to you I say, I don't care! Like, look at how the mod actually plays in practice. Some games it's just unlucky. I don't think Rotom C, I think that loss rate is deceptive. Rotom C is one of the best mons at gaining momentum just consistently. Most of the time, to prevent it from constantly getting momentum, you have to make these really aggressive doubles. Like really risky ones, you know, where you're going your Silvally Ground or your Mudsdale on the Volt Switch. Your Rotom C alone is pretty much why Togedemaru is viewed as any sort of viable right now. Because yes, if you're Scarf Toge, you get 2 hit KO'd by Leaf Storm. But you still prevent it from pivoting. And then you're faster and you could get the faster you turn off afterwards. Rotom C also has a good amount of like just roll comp. If you're talking Scarf Rotom C, the most common set of Leaf Storm, Volt Switch, Defog trick is just giving you a lot of good in one slot. Giving you a ground immunity, giving you a Scald switch in, giving you a pivot, giving you hazard removal, giving you a way to cripple Pokemon like Dragalge, Guzzlord, Vileplume. It's just a lot of nice. It's a lot of nice in one slot, and I do feel that despite the poor SCL performance, it's not really indicative of like Rotom C being worse off now. I think it's more just a matter of teams going out of their way to try their best to prevent it from, as I've said before, constantly forcing momentum with Volt Switch. So those are my Pokemon that have in the S ranks. Now we can look at A+. I'm going to speedrun a little bit of this because I don't think there's too much important here. Dragalge, I think we've talked about a lot on this channel. It's just one of the safest Pokemon in the tier to use. Very good at pivoting, especially with Vaporeon and Mantine being no longer super duper common. You know, those could try to like pivot onto your flip turn and then double to a steel type as you go for Sludge Bomb Draco. So you constantly are forcing momentum versus steals, and you can even just always Draco steel types as they come in and then flip afterwards. Adaptability Draco is just really strong. And I think that last move slot, having so many options between like Scald, T-Spikes, Focus Blast, it just further complicates what really can constitute as a safe Dragalge switch in. I also think Choice Specs Dragalge, I will not claim credit for that set, but I will say that I've hyped it up, or that I did talk positively about it several months ago. But Choice Specs Dragalge getting a little bit of tournament usage now. I mean, a lot of, again, people just looking at it and going, oh, yeah, Adaptability Draco Meteor is doing a lot to those steel types that are supposed to switch into me, huh? And I could even catch them with a Focus Blast and maybe outright remove them. You know, if you go back to the Redchan versus Charm Flash game, I think it was, from last week, Specs Dragalge damn near 6-0'd Charm Flash's stall. If it weren't for a really untimely Focus Blast miss, it would have won the game from that point, because Dragon Pulse even would have been able to get enough mileage out of that kind of damage. You know, Adaptability can carry that mon real far. Then we can look at Guzzlord. It does a lot good defensively. NU doesn't have a whole lot of good dark types, let alone defensive dark types. And so Guzzlord, being the best of them, is ranked the highest. You're a good check to the ghost types like Golurk. You can even avoid 2-hit KOs from CB Earthquake, which is kind of nutty. Rest Talk sets are really good at just sticking around and just, you know, knocking and earthquaking or heavy slamming a lot throughout the game. Toxic Protect sets are really good. Offensive sets, be it Choice Banded or, like, you know, Protect 3 attacks with leftovers, also really annoying to switch into. The knock absorbers of NU, a lot of them do kind of just fall to Guzzlord's other coverage. And in general, I think the point about coverage is pretty important. Knockoff Earthquake Heavy Slam is really good and only really dealt with all too well by Mudsdale and Vileplume. The former of which, you know, knock its lefties, how much longer is it really sticking around? I guess you could have Vaporeon in there as well. I just don't like the really linear lines that Vaporeon forces you to take, because after that first knock, you're probably being forced to wish immediately. And there are a lot of Pokemon in NU that do appreciate getting to freely come in versus a Vaporeon. You know, think about, like, say, Nasty Plot Rotom Mo, for instance. Next up, Mudsdale. I actually have this. Currently it's A. I want it to rise to A+. I think it's... Like, NU has so many good Stealth Rock setters, and Mudsdale is the best Volt Switch blocker in the tier, which I think is something worth commenting on. It's a generally just good sponge. There are a lot of hits that it takes that it shouldn't take. So, like, non-Choice Specs Dragalge's Draco, it tanks. Draco's from Goodra, it tanks. It's able to check a lot of just annoying physical attackers like Sirfetch'd, barring crits, Guzzlord, Drapion, Silvally Ground, Tauros, Tyrantrum. It just checks them. It's really reliable. I would say... I don't know if I'd say it mandates Wish support, but it's really damn good with Wish support. And both Sylveon and Vaporeon have some pretty nice synergy with them, especially since they can run a little bit more special bulk if they want to. Kind of creates a pretty cool defensive core there. Sylveon X also have rising up into A+. We had dropped it to A a couple shifts ago. I think Choice Specs getting more usage lately just validates A+ Sylveon in my eyes. I think that set is Exploud levels of annoying to deal with. And one correct prediction from it, as the Steel type comes in, Jay probably guarantees you insane progress the rest of the game just through clicking your Pixelate Hyper Voice. And we can look at the first, like, big shift I guess I have on mine, which is Vileplume all the way up to A+. And you can just read what I have here for it. I mean, Vileplume is literally a physical wall. There's just not much to it, but it's what it can do with its move slots that makes it so good. We've seen a lot of that through SCL, so like Infestation Leech Seed has been really, like, solid. Growth, anyone that played Sun Moon NU knows Growth. Vileplume is a demon, and it honestly, even Leech Seed Infestation terrorizes some bulkier builds. Growth Strength Sap just threatens those builds and says, hey, I'm winning right now. Have fun. Figure out your game plan now. Figure out what you're getting for your next battle. You know, hit that find battle button now, because this one is over. There's just so many useful options for this Pokemon, and while I don't build with it a lot myself, I always want to have it on my team. Defensively, it's really nice. Obviously, it's like probably the best knock absorber in the tier. So it's able to consistently come in versus Guzzlord and just say no. And that is really good. It's a good fairy resist as well. Big thing is that it shuts down Leech Seed, Calm Mind, Comfy, like really hard. And that is a great trait. And just, again, something that I will always say is I value anti-cheese Pokemon. Ditto I don't value, but something like this, something like this that I could see myself using on a lot of teams. I'll put a lot of stock in. And next A+ Mon Xatu, everyone knows what Xatu does. It denies the passive Stealth Rock setters from getting to just always click rocks. It's part of the reason that I think Druddigon is a good bit better right now too, because a lot of teams will just rely on Xatu as their only hazard prevention. Druddigon Feast versus that, of course. And it, something I do wonder, I do think at least, you could make the case for Xatu S-. I'd probably, if you did Xatu S-, I'd probably actually put Bronzong back in S with Talon. But I think Xatu with those cosmic power sets is just, it adds another dimension to that mon, you know? And a lot of time all you're seeing it used for is like pivoting and being a sort of shoddy check to Surfetched. Those cosmic power sets, they take games over so consistently from what I've found. There's a lot of people, and this, I guess this is like, you know, skill issue in some ways. A lot of people are just really willing to give you their only check. You know, the Blade, yeah, they don't need it. Oh, their Rotom-Mow or Helios, yeah, they just don't need it. And in Stored Power plus D-Gleam's really all the coverage you need on that. Not bad mon, not bad mon. Let's get to the A. So Copper-Raja. I just think Bronzong is too good, and Copper-Raja does not break the same way it used to. Part of that's also because Guzzlord being really good, and of course Xatu being really good means Stealth Rock sets are a little bit worse off. I think if you're going Rocks Copper, you go offensive now. That way at least you 2-hit KO Xatu and like actually prevent it from Roost stalling you, which is really good. It's still a good breaker because the coverage it has is stupid good. Like Slam, Whip, Superpower, Filler is really nice. There's just too many Pokemon, I think, that can pivot around Copper-Raja for it to actually, like, break consistently. Especially with its speed being so bad, you're always being forced to trade hits, essentially. That kind of sucks for it. Like, there are plenty of slow wall breakers I can choose from that also offer defensive utility, man. Copper-Raja's not special. Still good, though. I think Sheer Force sets could use a little bit more use. I tried them out, and they're not bad. And if you're scared of Snorlax, well, Sheer Force, Life Orb, Iron Head, Copper-Raja is a kind of a decent lure to it, I'd say. And yeah, moving on, Drapion. I think it's more of an A Pokemon than an A+, frankly. Part of it's the rise in Mudsdale and just the increased usage of Valley Ground. I also just don't think it's as good defensively, though, as Guzzlord. Again, a lot of this just comes down to competition with Guzzlord. They're kind of similar Pokemon in that they're trying to force incremental progress throughout the game. Drapion much more so, I guess, because you could throw in Poison Jab, but Guzzlord obviously has Talk. Very similar roles, and despite Drapion's really nice speed spot, pretty nice speed spot, I don't think that really saves it. Guzzlord's just significantly superior defensive prowess makes justifying it much easier on teams. Drapion's kind of cool, I guess, if you're worried about T-Spikes, I guess, but there's like one setter, and all the time Dragalge doesn't even bother with T-Spikes. It just says, okay, me have 4th attack last. Yay! It's still a good Pokemon. If you need a Poltergeist switch in a pinch, you can still do that. It's just a little bit, it's not even a little, it's significantly riskier than Guzzlord to use into those types of Pokemon. Golurk's still A rank, it's still the same really good breaker that it's always been. Goodra, still A rank, still the really good breaker that's always been. Salazzle, still A rank, she's still the really good nasty plot sweeper she has been. And we've seen people getting frisky with those sets. We've seen the Endure Salicberry. We've seen Encore Salazzle. Like, this mod does have a lot of stuff that it can do. You know, again, another example, just an Encore Pokemon being nice to shut down a bulky setup super that might try to exploit it. In this case, Snorlax. And Starmie and A, yeah, it's still a really good breaker. Starmie I could sometimes see dropping to A-, but I think with Vaporeon on the downturn, that keeping it in A is probably best. A-, Blastoise, it's still the same matchup fishy Shell Smasher that it's been. Escavalier up to A-. I think a lot of people probably agree with this. I know some are lower on Escavalier than I am, but I think Swords Dance Protect to attacks, usually knock off Iron Head, is a very good progress maker. Being able to lure in Talon is really nice to consistently get rid of its boots and just make it easier for your team to get rid of, especially if you're against a greedy team that has Talonflame without a defogger. A lot of people like to try to do that, and it's hard to get away with. I also find Escavalier is really nice at blanket checking a lot of special attackers just because the bulk is so good. You know, even things like Starmie, Heliolisk, they can kind of struggle to get by Escavalier without, you know, a decent amount of prior chip. Especially when you throw Protect into that, like it makes it so much more annoying. And you could even look at Pokemon like, say, Vileplume, and, you know, Escavalier, it can just get by Vileplume. This is really nice about making that matchup very trivial. Explode! It is still A- rank because Boom Burst is a funny attack. Heliolisk, it's still A- rank. Yeah, there's less Yeah, there's less Vaporeon and Mantine right now, but I honestly just value Specs Heliolisk a lot. I think Volt Switch, T-Bolt, Hyper Voice Surf is very good at breaking, and with Protect not necessarily being like uncommon, but a little bit less common than it has been in previous metas, it can be a little harder to scout Heliolisk, which also decentivizes the people that want to try to tell me Expert Belt is the best set on this mod. I can assure you it is not. That is a bad way to make use of Heliolisk. It is also just fast, and as people have tried to, or as people like to say, Inu is a little bit slow. Yes and no. I find that you can build your way into slow teams really easily, but I also think you can fix that really easily. Heliolisk is a good way to make sure that your teams don't end up too slow. Competition with Rotom Mo sucks. They're not very similar Pokemon, but if you're like me and you have that horrible habit of not wanting to stack types, hey, I guess that's worth mentioning. Passimian, I think it should go up to A- because I think it's the best Scarfer in the tier. It's another mon that can just get knockoffs onto Pokemon like Mudsdale and Talonflame really reliably. And I do value that people will give me their Talonflames for free, because I think Rock Slide last on pass is probably the best. You know, I don't see... Earthquake's okay, especially if you need Passimian to be your Salazzle Revenge Killer. Rock Slide will not get the job done from full. I think Rock Slide's just really, really good. You know, people love to fish for status with Pokemon that can do so. We saw Vileplume do that a lot last gen. We see Talonflame do that a lot this gen. And Passimian being able to deny Talonflame from doing that, I think that's really valuable. So Valley Ground, it is still A-. I think, you know, again, it's one of the better knock absorbers in the tier, despite not having the bulk of Vileplume. And while I think teams have adjusted to it pretty decently, it's still a pretty menacing sweeper. And if you just want to do Swords Dance with U-turn last, then you can kind of help offset the issue when you of like running into multiple mons that just stop you, or not stop you, but check you. Like if you go run into like Levitate Bronzong plus Vileplume, for instance, it's a good way to keep up against those teams and not let them just shut you down all game. Or even against the teams that run like, you know, Quag Balance. It's a good answer to those two. Sirfetch'd, it was I moved it down to A-. I think Sirfetch'd requires far too much support to really function. And again, we come back to the point of, there are lots of mid-speed tier wall breakers. And while Sirfetch'd is definitely super dangerous, I don't view it as above and beyond all those other ones to some insane degree. I really do feel like it's on the par with Explode. Maybe that means Explode should rise, but at the very least, I would definitely have it in the same tier as Sirfetch'd. It's not a super splashable Pokemon. And I would say Toxicroak and Passimian are far more justifiable on teams most of the time because they do a lot more than Sirfetch'd. I mean, Knockoff and First Impression, yes, those are really nice moves to have around. Against Sirfetch'd can pretty much guarantee you knock Talon's boots off. But even with the coin flip chance to get a crit with Leak, somehow this Mon finds a way to be unreliable because, again, it's a coin flip. I have seen games where Sirfetch'd never gets a single crit. You want to see a sad, pathetic excuse of a wall breaker? There you got it. A Sirfetch'd that isn't getting crits with Leak. On Toxicroak, I still have A-. Yeah, bulky water types, in specific Vaporeon, not as common as they once were. But I feel Toxicroak is really just a good breaker right now. Especially with people experimenting a little bit more and more with more offensive Mudsdale sets. And of course, the increase in usage of Vileplume. It finds its way past teams pretty consistently right now. Deblade's entry into the tier hasn't really hurt it at all. Mostly because I think Deblade hasn't picked up in usage too hard yet. But SD Low Kick Croak absolutely eviscerates those, again, I don't want to say offensive Mudsdale, but like the non-fully bulky ones. And Priority Sucker Punch, really good denying things like Heliolisk and Talonflame, their revenge kill. Also just really like the 50-50 Force versus Talonflame if it ever loses its boots. It's like, haha, you want to go for a Brave Bird and have me Suckery, or you want to go for Roosta and die to Gunk? I think that's pretty good. And a Vaporeon, last mon, I'm going to have it in A-. I almost considered dropping it, but no, Vaporeon's still pretty solid defensively. It's got the largest wish in the tier that it can pass. I think that's really good. It's a good cleric. And it can sit around in front of teams for a while and just be annoying with Scald. There are a lot of mons getting used right now that don't really care if it does that. But I think Vaporeon's still a mon that is kind of hard to just outright threaten to Oko. You know, again, even things like Heliolisk and Rotom-Mow can sort of struggle to just instantly insta-give it. But, again, I just don't find that bulky water type is something I need on teams very frequently anymore. I find that, again, it's kind of a matter of like how you team build. Bulky water type's not something that when I look at my teams I see myself defaulting to all too much. I think you can, sure, it takes multiple Pokemon to cover maybe what one Vaporeon could do, but along with this other Pokemon, I'm getting a lot of other traits that I maybe otherwise wouldn't if I opted for Vaporeon to cover, you know, all my water type needs. You know, I can opt for like Goodra plus Scarf Rotom-Mow, for instance. And I'll probably be pretty okay off against bulky water types. Throw in a Steel type to scout for the Ice Beam in there too, sure. It's just, I don't need what it does anymore, pretty much. So we got Braviary. I didn't really know what to do with it. I think Sub Bulk Up has gotten some decent success in SCL. And I also am always kind of just wary of like choiced sets. Like the lure potential with Iron Head to pop a Diancie is pretty tempting. If Deblade ever gets too high in usage, I do worry a little bit about Braviary long term. That's not to say you can't break down a Deblade because it doesn't have reliable recovery. But it is still something I worry about in terms of Braviary's like long-term aspirations. But yeah, Sub Bulk Up's really nice. Very bulky Pokemon, and the speed tier allows you to get away with more bulk investment maybe than you otherwise would. You know, you don't need as much speed to guarantee your subs up against Pokemon, say like Mantine. You're worried about that being faster than you and toxicking you before you can sub up. Same with Vaporeon, and you're just naturally faster than it, if I'm remembering right. Yeah, you better be faster than 65 speed, otherwise, oh, we got some talking to do. Deblade's initial... Oh, let's talk about Decidueye. Decidueye is another one that I wasn't overly sure on where I wanted it, so I just defaulted to keeping it B+. Breaker sets are still fine. You know, again, CB Decidueye is really nice because of how much U-turn does to Guzzlord. But... I don't know. Again, I don't love the speed tier. It's just such a congested speed tier is my issue. There are so many Pokemon in that base, like 60 to 80 range. And so a good amount of them feel not great. I've seen some defog Decidueye get used, like Leaf Storm Shadow Ball defog. It doesn't sound bad, especially because you can very, very hard doink on certain Bronzong, which is good, and of course consistently take advantage of Mudsdale, so long as you have the Heal Bell support, which, I mean, you know, Vaporeon, Dancier, Sylveon, not too hard to get on your team. It's just destroys a mon that it's like, I feel on paper it should be a good bit better than it actually is. On paper it's probably an A- mon, in practice it sometimes feels like a B- mon, but I think B+ is okay enough for it. To Blade's initial placement, put in B+. As you can see here, a lot of it's because the other steel types, where Inu is at, I feel a lot of time you just want the other steel types because of what they offer defensively. It's a little bit harder to compensate for what Blade can't check as a steel type. You compare it with Diancie and get a good amount of that sort of protection, or just like, say, like specially defensive Vaporeon. And I see it eternally talk about how you think Blade just straight up excels on offense, and so maybe you don't need it to handle those Pokemon, at least not too well. Like, you could use it as a one-time pivot into them, into like a Dragalge Draco, and that's good enough for an offense team, because those slower dragon types, or even mid-speed tier dragon types, like Goodra for instance, won't get too many chances to come in and freely attack. But I have always found myself, for my steel type, defaulting to Bronzong or Scavalier, even Copperajah, if I want, like, you know, Talonflame or something on a team for another teammate. So I'm always like, Blade offers an insane amount of physical bulk. That's where I really like it for those more offensive teams, because it's just good defensive insurance against a certain set of like Pokemons, like Tauros, Tyrantrum, for instance. I'm mostly saying those because I see them right here, but they apply. I do think a good reason that I could still see it being an A- is Shadow Sneak Swords Dance can eat certain teams after very minimal like prerequisites are met. You know, if you don't have like a high health Salazzle or a alive Heliolisk, you know, some special attacking mon that can just instantly demolish Blade. That mon could actually be kind of scary to deal with, because not too much takes a hit from it, from +2, even like Iron Head or CC for instance, and even less threatens it like with an Oko. You know, I was playing a game with Sylvally Ground against a Blade. I did under half with multi-attack. The fact that Blade could probably eat a +2 multi-attack from Ground Valley is incredibly upsetting to me. When it goes to speak how much this mon is capable of handling in a pinch, you know, even just outright shutting down some other stuff like, say, Braviary. Not Passimian, but things like Braviary, it's good against Vileplume, even with the not great special defense. Certain Talonflame even it couldn't shut down. You're talking about like Swords Dance Roost, Brave Bird U-turn. So there's that. Mantine, I have it dropping to B+, because it's just, again, it's not that it's like gotten all too much worse. It's mostly just a matter of I think these mons are better, more applicable to teams. And it's kind of the same with Tauros. There are people that want Tauros to rise. I'm just not a huge fan of it. In practice, yes, you can make a lot of progress against mons like Mudsdale, like Blade. And Tauros' speed tier even helps it against some of those other like faster breakers. Again, you have the jump on Heliolisk. Teams often still have multiple ways of outspeeding Tauros and keeping it in check that way. Teams can often still pivot around its attacks, limit it that way. It is another admittedly hard mon for me to truly place where I think it should be with like certainty. Obviously shifts were hurt. If you want to talk about tier shifts, yeah, they harmed it. The Blade is another check. Is it a check that could be overwhelmed over time? Sure. But you can switch into Throat Chop once and not be worried about getting KO'd the next turn. So I don't know. Tyrantrum kept B+. Was a little bit worried about it with the Blade in the tier, but it hasn't really been too much of a problem for it. You'll see some other Pokemon rows that definitely are Tyrantrum checks, Palisand and Rhydon for instance. I mostly am just ranking it here because of its performance via Kushalos and SCL. That Scarf Stealth Rock Tyrantrum has been putting in work pretty consistently for him. And even just on my own usage, I have liked fast rock type as a means of offensively answering not Aerodactyl. Since I'm offensively answering Talonflame and Salazzle even, it's good to have just offensive insurance to the fast fire types within you. Now we're finally in mid B. Comfy. It's really just subseed CM. I think it deserves more respect. Vileplume usage is something to keep track of with Comfy's ranking. I think you could justify almost that alone as just saying don't raise Comfy. But again, it's got an incredibly positive Iron Defense body press Bronzong matchup. And in general, hey, you get the right matchup, Comfy will 6-0 from preview. And that is worth ranking in B. Palisand, it's a durable ground type. Picks a Shore Up, throws up Stealth Rock. It doesn't lose to Xatu outright. Good mon. Rhydon, again, the Diancie Mudsdale compressor. Can get by Levitate Bronzong if you do like those Smackdown sets that you sometimes see. If you run, I mean, hell, I think you could just beat Xatu with those, but you could also go Swords Dance to really muscle by Xatu. Good check to things like Tyrantrum, Braviary, Talon, although that requires cleric support if you want to remain all too usable in other parts of the battle. Even a good Tauros check too. Scrafty, slight rise to B, mostly because I want to believe that as a defensive dark type, it still has something to offer. Again, it's another example of a Pokemon like Growth Vileplume that absolutely eats bulky teams. Bulk up Scrafty is a menace to society. If you run into Quagsire, that's doomed. You go next. But otherwise, you've got a pretty good matchup against those teams. And again, just the raw natural bulk is a big plus. There's a lot of, ghost types otherwise threaten to just smash in the normal types or other dark types in the tier that we have access to. So think like, say, Sneasel or even Drapion. Something like a Golurk's blasting those. Golurk also, if it just predicts the Heliolisk or Exploud, yeah, those are dying to Earthquake. Scrafty at least could scout for that. And then here's a paragraph I wrote for a Snorlax. I put Snorlax in B. This is going to get me some people talking very rudely about me behind my back, and very nicely to me to my face. I am very aware of that. And guess what? I don't care. Do it. Snorlax sucks. Your favorite Pokemon to call broken? Not very good, actually. So, let's actually say why, so that we're not just throwing, petty commentary back and forth. Snorlax is the biggest tempo suck in the entire tier, I think. It is one of the biggest bait-and-switch Pokemon that I have... Bait-and-switch. It's one of the biggest baits in the Team Builder I've ever seen. What I mean by that is it is... Redshot said this all in council chat. It's incredibly stupid to, look at your team and say, yeah, I'm confident in my Snorlax matchup. I don't think too many people look at a team and think, yeah, no, I'm for sure fine against Lax. Because there's a lot of, minor techs you could be worried about it doing, and somehow getting one up on you. We've seen people do Curse Rest, Darkest Lair, Heavy Slam, for instance, as a means of getting past Diancie. We've seen, straight up people have posted sequences of Snorlax taking on Iron Defense Bronzong. His Darkest Lariat bypass the defense boosts. Yeah, these are somewhat worrying. Sure. A lot of times Snorlax doesn't actually get these ideal sequences, though. And a big part of it is because it's very unreliable due to its longevity issues. So, for starters, obviously you're relying on rest. That's just not a good recovery move. When you're asleep, look at NU. Look at all these stupidly scary breakers that I have up here. You want to give Choice Spec Sylveon free leverage? You want to give CB Golurk leverage? You want to give Exploud leverage? This one could just beat Snorlax while it's asleep, by the way. You want to give Surfetched leverage? Croak leverage? So, that's for starters. 2, the Hazard's weakness. You're weak to every kind of hazard. Guess what that forces you to do sooner? It forces you to rest sooner. And it means that actually getting, this kind of flows into the next point. Getting curses up is not very easy because Snorlax is so hard pressed to do so much at once. I've seen people talk about how, oh, you don't use Snorlax as both a Curse Sweeper and a, bulky Mon at once. Yeah. I agree. Because you can't. If you try to do one, you don't get to do the other. And this sort of flows into point 4, where it's just the teams that Snorlax is on are so flimsy a lot of the time. I was talking with my friend, Eternally, and he pretty much just said, yeah, these Snorlax sort of like slow bounces, they sort of just lose really slowly. They don't make much progress. They're not, you know, it doesn't look like you're out of the game, but I feel like you're kind of out of it by like turn 50, even if you have all 6 Pokemon alive. You don't do much with those builds. And maybe this is an issue that'll be solved as the tier, as the tier develops more, just as Snorlax gets used more and people really do start figuring out, okay, what sorts of builds does someone really fit on? But it feels like so far you're kind of forced into slower paced teams, because otherwise if you run like say standard balance, it's just too hard to really maximize Snorlax's efficiency or effectiveness, because you're going to probably want it to do something defensively, and that's going to compromise your ability to get much out of it as a curse sweeper. And even defensively, yeah, I mean, have fun using rest and then being incapable of actually beating, you know, the Specs, Starmie, or Inteleon that you want to answer the next time you come in. It gives up the flow of the game to your opponent really easily because of how just dreadful its longevity is. Despite having these like stats that look, again, it's like Glastrier really. It looks like it should stat check the entire tier on paper. In practice, it really just doesn't. And that's why I have it in B. For its inability to have shown me across the month we have had it that it is actually a threat worth considering in the builder. I may end up with a team that I'm not overly certain about the Snorlax matchup, but I'm still always confident in my ability to outplay a Snorlax. Just deny it momentum. That's really all you're doing versus Snorlax a lot of the time. You're trying to keep momentum in your favor. And I think through Hazard's pressure, just offensive pressure in general, that's often pretty reasonable of an ask. I could see Snorlax maybe rising up a little bit to like B+ or A- even one day. And who knows, it could become the focal point of the tier. But at this point in time, I think rating Snorlax over too highly is not very practical. I think we need to see more success out of this Pokemon before we go further. Anyhow, next Mon, Serena, I have in B. This is from being at unranked. Y'all know how high I am on the Queen, man. She does so much well. So well. She's a good pivot. She's a good knockoff user. She's a good spinner. She's a pretty good wall breaker too because of all the coverage. You can't do all that in one set, obviously, and you also even want to try to fit Synthesis in there so that you can consistently switch into ground types. And you are a little bit weak to status too. Think about mons like Mudsdale and Vaporeon that you'd want to switch into. You can get poisoned or burned pretty easily. So it requires a little bit of support against that too. But hey, a Pokemon that can use Rapid Spin and actually like not feel like you're wasting a move slot by putting Rapid Spin there, or just, you know, any... This really just applies to any hazard removal move. Think, again, like default Talonflame. That is just not a good way to use Talon. I think in current NU, that's a really valuable niche. I think we've seen good success from Serena in SCL as well. And I think that mandates it being placed pretty favorably, with room to go up, frankly. Oh god, we're almost done, yes! She's got 3 more sub-ranks. My throat is starting to get really upset. Araquinid. Y'all know what Araquinid does, man. Exploits, like it's like the Vaporeon killer. You queue into a Vaporeon, you sub up, you win. It doesn't do a whole lot in other matchups. Liquidation is still a pretty strong move to throw off against teams in general, but you're really looking for a matchup fish, where there's like one passive Pokemon on the other team that you just stonewall. And you can just, you know, spread toxic poisons to everything, throw off your really strong liquidations. It's an annoying ass mon. Anyhow, Dhelmise. I want to like Dhelmise more, but it's like everything it could do, there's something else that does it better. I still think the combination of like bulk, still reasonable power, rapid spin, durability, all of that I think still leverages it a B- ranking. In contrast to another Pokemon, though, we'll get close to, or we'll get to later. Don't worry about that one. it's like, it's still an emergency answer to a Shell Smashed Blastoise, so long as you avoid all of the hacks that can occur in that one turn. My god. And it's just like generally a good Rotom-Mow answer too. It's got enough special bulk to panic check a good amount of stuff, honestly. It only really fits on one archetype, like really bulky offense I think is where you see Dhelmise the most. And I'm not a favor of teams that are like overly slow right now. Again, because of all those mid-speed breakers, they're just... I don't want to give them leverage, ever. Now, this could just be a me problem, but again, this is my VR. All my problems are reflected in this VR, alright? So that's where I'm at with Dhelmise. Druddigon in B-. I think it does a decent enough amount of stuff defensively, just through its typing. It's a soft check to things like Starmie, Blastoise, and Inteleon, Serena, Rotom-Mow. And of course the big seller, Mold Breaker, Stealth Rock. Being able to guarantee rocks up against Xatu teams, being able to punish Xatu only hazard removal or prevention teams, I think that's incredible. Also, Glare is a really nice move. Supports a lot of Pokemon in the tier. Next up is Ferroseed, again, another new rank mon. I've been using it a good amount lately, and I think, again, it's like one of those mons that offers an incredibly specific set of characteristics. So sometimes it's a little hard to like justify, because, you know, team build yourself into that sort of hole. You almost have to willingly, like, from the beginning decide this is the hole I'm team building into, and this is how I'm going to justify a Ferroseed. But it's a water resist, it's a rock resist, it's a spiker, it could knock off a Talon if you need to, or a Xatu, sure. I think it's a mon that it's like a lot more effective once you start trying it out. The Xatu matchup's horrible. You don't do anything there. You knock its Rocky Helmet off, and that's about it. But I mean, how many breakers do we have that can come in on a Xatu switch? Punish that really predictive gameplay? Plenty. So I'm not too worried about that. You pretty much, again, like, Ferroseed plus Druddigon is actually, like, a really good core defensively. But also Ferroseed goes well with Diancie. Gives you that Cleric immediately if you need that to help Ferroseed stave off Scald Burns. I think, like, offensive rocks, Mudsdale is probably not the worst. Still feels like a recipe for getting hardwalled by Xatu with too many members of your team, but it still doesn't sound that bad. I know. Hey, look, another Spiker, Frostlass. This is the Spikers tier. Frostlass I've used a lot on hyper offense builds lately, and it's just really good. Icy Wind, Thunder Wave, Taunt. Those are your moves other than spikes. You 2-hit KO Xatu with Icy Wind. You can deny some of the other anti-leads too. So like Aerodactyl, if they go for the greedy taunt versus you turn 1 instead of rock blasting you like they should, then you hit them with an Icy Wind and you're really happy. Isn't he outspeed in the next turn? KO. The only like lead matchup I've actually ever struggled into with Frostlass with this was like against a Magic Coat Araquinid. You know, that was the least enjoyable game of my life. Frostlass still ended up being useful because it got the Cursed Body Disable on the Liquidation and allowed my Tyrantrum to sweep. So even then, look at that. Cursed Body's got good utility too. I just found it to be, though, a really consistent spiker. It's got a decent enough matchup against all of the hazard removals in the tier. You think like Xatu, Serena, Rotom-Mow. I'm trying to think of like other ones that I'd actually want to use. I mean, you just taunt the slower ones too, like Mantine. It's pretty nice. Garbodor dropped from B to B-. I just don't think... I don't like the balance builds with spikes too much. I feel Garbodor doesn't offer enough otherwise to those teams defensively. Like, what does Garb do defensively that you can't find in other teammates? A lot of the time has been the question I've asked myself. The answer I've gotten is pretty minimal. You know, I can find other fighting resists. I can find other fairy resists. I could put a Talonflame on my team pretty much, is what I'm saying. It's still a fine enough mon if you really need a Surfetched answer, but otherwise I'm not too sold on it. Kingdra, it's a mon that I'm just like unsure how good it really is, but I think keeping it B- is probably fine. The Scopelins sets don't need too much to go their way to clean. You just need to get the space in the game to set up over 2 turns. Wheezing, I actually do have rising up from B-. Most of this is just recency bias, I think, but I do feel that Weezing's ability to dunk on Silvally ground is really cool. Let's say that like enables a heat-proof Bronzong on your team much more easily. Wall Serena, which of course I think is really good, so I'm gonna be biased towards Pokemon that beat other Pokemon I think are really good. I mean, if I'm ever worried about Snorlax, Weezing also just does arbitrarily 1v1 Snorlax with Taunt Sludge, Pain Split Wisp. Again, like, what does it actually do defensively? Not too terribly much, but I think it's around on par with Garbodor from my recent experience. Aerodactyl, yeah, like half the tier walls it. All I'm saying though is check out AIM's next NU video. That's all I'm gonna say. Doraleon, decent enough offense lead. Eject pack sets are pretty cool for keeping up momentum too. Yeah. Glass Tray. I hate this mon. It's bad. Tell me why you'd use a Glass Tray on your team, unless you just want to. When are you naturally team building and going, oh, I need a Glass Tray here? Yeah, that's what's gonna finish off this team real well. A fucking Glass Tray. You can't tell me that's ever happened. You're lying if you do, and if you lie to me, I'm gonna be really sad. It's just not good. It doesn't give my team anything by adding it. Even if you want to, like, I don't even think Choice Band is probably any good. I'd rather use CB Sneasel. By the way, I have Sneasel in C+ too. It's fast, and Choice Band and Swords Dance sets are both good. I genuinely don't think this mon is worth using. I'm still keeping it ranked C+, because I think on paper threat is valid enough for it. But the only recent success I've heard of this mon was a shitpost thread made in the NU sub forum of some guy getting swept by Trick Room Glass Tray. Maybe that's the fucking recipe to success. I couldn't tell you. Inteleon up to C+. Water Absorb mon's less common now. And Inteleon's speed tier is really damn good too. So since you see a lot of teams trying to run more flimsy checks to water types, you're thinking like Starmie, Vileplume, Guzzlord, Goodra. Inteleon actually has a pretty good matchup into those teams. And again, it offensively answers things like, say, Salazzle, Tauros, which is really good. Natural power better than Starmie's as well. Ninjask in C+, it's not good. Too many mons can sit in front of its face for the entire course of a game and just deny it momentum. Even like Talonflame is a huge hindrance because you don't get to like safely U-turn spam throughout a game anymore with this mon. It's very risky with how good Talonflame is, how common it is, and Flame Body just makes this not a Pokemon. Quagsire in C+, I've seen enough like balanced Quagsire builds to say that this is a reasonable mon. It's a nice like just sort of, hey, here's a Volt blocker if I want to get greedy, and here's a mon that shuts down, say like Swords Dance, Silvally Ground. It's also a Tyrantrum check, I guess. Decent enough, just physical sponge too to some of the weaker attackers like non-choice banded Guzzlord. Sits on Drapion all day, which is cool. We talked about Sneasel, also a dark type, which I guess is sort of worth something. And then Togedemaru as well. I just think Rotom-Mow is really good, so Togedemaru being a little bit higher up than where it was previously, which was down here, is fine. Arcanine, I have it going from B all the way down to C. Why? Because I don't agree with anyone that tells me Arcanine has a niche to be used that validates B, or even B-. I think it's really bad because Talonflame is really good. And as I say here, I can only really think that if the only time I would ever use an Arcanine, God help me, is if I really thought I needed an Ice Resist on my team. Ow. Don't like that. It's like, I guess, moderately less, you know, it's a little less Stealth Rock weak than Talon. But you're still weak to Spikes and T-Spikes, so you lose your boots, you could still get messed up. The slow pivot compared to Talon's, you know, you're pretty much Talon. You talk about like maybe it's a guaranteed pivot because you're gonna be faster than most things. You can always get the U-turn out versus a threat. Arcanine, I guess, like if you know you have it in versus something it forces out, you can get the slow pivot, or just the the safe pivot into something even if that mon gets greedy. but it's just bad. Offensive sets don't even beat Vaporeon, bro. Wild Charge does like 40. That's not damage. I'm taking more back than I'm doing to Vaporeon. That's bad. Articuno, because TDK used it, and you know what? It looked decent enough. It has Heal Bell, kind of specially defensive. Kind of check some stuff like Goodra in a pinch, I guess. Sure. Entity Female, it's fine enough. Shadow Ball does a lot to Bronzong. Mystical Fire does a lot to the other ones. An Expanding Force, just generally strong. That's really all I have to say there. Machamp at C, the niche over Surfetched is that you don't care about status from Talon, and you just get to click Facade repeatedly. And you're like 2 at KOing everything. So Valley Steel, I just don't care about. It can stay ranked, sure. You could pair it with support and have it function alright. I think that's not too far of a reach. Gallarfisk, it's been okay in SCL. And then, again, it's got the Steelix typing. Gallarfisk is, like, the exact reason I want Steelix in the tier. Imagine Gallarfisk, but good. And there you got Steelix. And the last mon that we actually that I think should be ranked is Omastar. Because I've seen Eternally destroy so many people on ladder with it. And if that ain't worth ranking, then I don't know what is. And we got some ones I unranked. I think Sand is just kind of bad. Gigalith is a very limiting factor for you if you're going to team build. Like, it's just not good. It's not that it doesn't check things. Like, you can check things like Goodra, Jagauji, Salazzle really well with Gigalith. But it's just bleh. And then when it's gotten used, it hasn't really done much. Magneton I also think is pretty pointless. I guess the niche to Magneton would be you trap steel types if they're like under 50%. And you could switch into steel type, but it Volt switch out. My counterpoint would be, or I could use a Dragalge or a Exploud and Goodra and just force the steel type to come into me and still have them take 40%. So, and the Silvally Ghost I just think's not very good anymore. The other, again, Silvally Ground is the premier SD Silvally variant, I'd say now. It has significantly more positive matchups. Overall better breaker because its coverage isn't as whack in comparison. Yeah, it's essentially just got the better offensive typing for this NU. Which is weird to say because Ghost is an incredible typing. It's just, you're running, like, multi-attack plus like X Scissor. It's really dire. That's my little personal VR right now. My power rankings, if you will. I hope y'all guys did enjoy me talking about NU for an hour. Oh my lord, my throat is very unhappy with me, but you know what? Maybe y'all won't be. As always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I want to hear what y'all have to say about the tier, where y'all think some things stand right now. As always, thank y'all for watching. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.